Hey guys, what is going on? Today we're gonna review Tec 9 and just see how we can use it in a competitive CSGO environment. So, if you're anything like me, during a save round, you probably buy a Deagle just to be safe. For the longest time, I felt like Tec 9 would just be the first round gun, and you don't really buy it ever again after the first round. But lately, I've been trying new things, cause Deagle can get a little boring and it's inconsistent quite a bit, especially if you don't practice with it all the time, right? So I was like, hey, I get killed with the Tec 9 a lot when I'm playing on the CT side, so maybe I should give it a shot. Like, I play with 5.7 a lot, so why don't I use the Tec 9? I don't know, I actually don't have an answer to this. But hey, I actually tried it out. And it's pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, it's actually a really nice gun. Like, I was shocked. And I was like, hey, I wonder how many people out there are just like me. They kind of want to try Tec 9, but they try it one game and it doesn't work out and they don't ever touch it again. So this actually inspired me to do this review tutorial for you guys. And hey, if you don't mind leaving a like or maybe a comment, this will help our channel a lot. If not, that's cool, don't worry about it. But anyways, let's get right into it, guys. Okay guys, so what is this Tec 9 pistol all about? Let's take a look. First of all, let's see what it offers us. So first of all, coming at $500, it's the middle ground between P250 and a Deagle. Now, is it worth the $500? Definitely. Whether it's your pistol round or a Nico round, Tec 9 always packs a punch. As I mentioned in my video about Glock, by the way, if you haven't seen our videos about starter pistols and our reviews of them, kinda how to get better at them, check them out, they were released last week. Anyways, in my Glock video I mentioned how it's a nightmare to play with a Glock in a deathmatch. It could be okay during a Nico round or a pistol round, but when everybody is playing with an AK or an op, it's a pain. However, I've also mentioned that Deagle is okay, for example in deathmatch, and so is Tec 9. I was actually pretty surprised, so by the end of the deathmatch I was in the 5th place, only 8 to 10 kills below the top fragger. So while it's not the optimal gun to pick against an M4 or an SMG or an op, it's definitely a gun to consider, if you know what I mean. And if you haven't really played with Tec 9, it's kind of tricky, I would say. First of all, I should probably mention that it's the gun to use when running and gunning. And I'm gonna show you an example later at a workshop map. But you do have to practice a little bit with it just to get a feel for the recovery time. Like, it's pretty short comparing to a Deagle, but then comparing to a Glock it's a little longer. So you just have to find the golden middle for Tec 9. But honestly, I'm not gonna lie, I feel like deathmatch in this specific case is one of the best places to practice the pistol, because you're very likely to use it on the saving round or Nico round. If you're rushing a site, for instance, Tec 9 would be irreplaceable. It would be much better than a Deagle, because while it's good to hold positions with a Deagle, it's not always the best to rush with it. And even if you don't win the round, but you take a couple picks, the opponents will essentially be losing thousands of dollars because they likely have rifles, considering they won the previous round. If you manage to close distance, you'll essentially be golden. But what do you do if there is a guy with M4 holding the site? Well, unlike some other guns, the accurate range of Tec 9 is actually incredibly high for what it is. I think the only ones that are higher are Deagle and Revolver, but they're a whole other category of pistols, if you know what I mean. Anyway, while deathmatch is great for practice, you also have to develop the game sense, right? So if you don't want to play competitive or even scrimmage maps, you can always play casual. So let's take a look. In casual, it's a lot more realistic because people actually hold angles and rush sites and all this kind of stuff. So in casual, it's gonna be a lot less getting shot in the back and a lot more getting shot because the guy's holding an angle with a knob. And if you're using Tec 9, clearly you will not be top fragging in a casual, no matter how good you are. Instead, you'll get a good practice against enemies with armor, because in a competitive match they will have armor pretty much every round except for the first one, if they decided to get a better pistol. And then, buy some smokes, buy some mollies, buy some nades, just to make things more spicy, if you know what I mean. But now, because you only have a Tec 9, and pretty much everybody else has a rifle, you have to try to get to as close to the enemies as possible, which makes it a lot more interesting. Once again, it's a good way to get a feel for the gun, as opposed to a workshop map where all enemies are stationary or moving but not shooting you. Here, the stakes are a little higher as opposed to a deathmatch, so this definitely adds a little bit of action to the game as well. Plus, you'll also have enemies nading, mollying, flashing, so it just makes it a lot more realistic as opposed to a deathmatch where you mostly just practice your aim. And of course, as always, I suggest trying scrimmage maps, but for the sake of this video, I just showed you casual, because scrimmage maps are a lot of dedication and most of the time you won't actually practice the pistol, because you do have to get an SMG on the second round, hopefully, and then the rifle, right? You know what I mean? So yeah, just give it a shot and see where it goes, if you know what I'm saying. And if you think it's too much and the fact that you have to wait between rounds is just killing you, once again, I suggest going to the workshop map that I'm gonna show you in just 1 second. I'm not gonna lie, I really wanted you to see the fast aim reflex training map, because I think it's a great way to practice with moving targets, essentially. Probably the best way, in my opinion, unless you want to play deathmatch, right? However, unfortunately, for some reason, I couldn't find a way to play as a terrorist, so I couldn't get a Tech 9. This is highly unacceptable, and I'm gonna be complaining to the management, you'll see me. But for now, let's just switch to a different map. It's kind of a bummer this one didn't work, but we'll survive. So this is my favorite map that I include in pretty much every single tutorial I make. And the main reason for it is simply because it's so highly customizable. You can have the enemies wear helmet, Kevlar and helmet, or nothing at all. And like, you can use any guns available in the game. Plus you have a choice of like shooting from the barrier or opening the barrier and running around and shooting the enemies. Like, it's amazing. It's so customizable. So let's grab a Tech 9 and try playing around a little bit. So from the get-go you get an idea that it actually gets the enemies pretty far away, and while it's not a one-shot headshot, it's still pretty impressive. And it's pretty hard to tell when you're in the rush of the game, but here you can actually feel how crazy the armor penetration of Tech 9 is. And also let me tell you, the amount of accidental headshots you're gonna get with Tech 9 is gonna be so high. I don't know why, but the way its spray pattern works, especially when you're running, is amazing. Okay, now let's remove some armor just for testing purposes. As you can see, you still cannot land a one-shot headshot unless you're close enough to them, but it's still pretty impressive, and if you're doing chest shots, I think 3 is gonna be more than enough to actually get the enemy down. And while it's not as impressive as Deagle, it's still pretty cool, especially considering the crazy recoil pattern of Deagle and the magazine size. Now, a lot of people actually have a hard time choosing between the CZ and Tech 9, so let's compare them. As you can see, CZ seems just too OP if you think about it. Like, you get the enemies down, especially if they're close to you, just effortlessly. However, this picture changes really fast when you remove the unlimited bullets. So now you have to reload after 12 bullets every time, and you see how weak it actually is. Okay, let me correct myself, not weak, just not as powerful as it seemed before. Plus, you gotta think that it only has 24 bullets, which actually makes it really difficult. Shooting one magazine with an automatic pistol is like nothing, and you only have 2. So just comparing the two, Tech 9 and CZ, we're comparing 90 bullets against 12 in the magazine. So while CZ would likely still be one of the best guns if you're on the CT side holding the sight, if you're on the T side, I don't know, I don't think so. You see, Tech 9 is just a lot more versatile than CZ is. Now I guess another difference is, in the long range, CZ's accuracy is a lot lower than Tech 9's. So once again, unless you're a CT holding the sight and the enemy is rushing from the exact point where you're holding, it can be quite beneficial to use one. However, as a terrorist who has to rush the site every single time, I do not see how CZ would come on top of Tech 9 ever. And now I'm sure a lot of people will be curious how it compares to 5.7 on the CT side. And I'm not gonna lie, they are very, very similar. 5.7 has lower armor penetration, and it also has a harder time shooting enemies from afar. However, it has 2 more bullets in its magazine, which isn't exactly a game changer. However, it can help you in some situations. They have a little bit different spray patterns, and 5.7 has a little bit lower armor penetration. But other than that, they're very similar guns, I'm not gonna lie. Unfortunately, similar to Tech 9, 5.7 cannot land a one-shot headshot from far away, but we're used to that by now. I've played with 5.7 so much more than Tech 9 just because I was intimidated by it for some reason. And I'm not gonna lie, 5.7 is my to-go pistol. So now I definitely see myself using more Tech 9 on the T side as opposed to Deagle, especially when you rush all the time, right? Okay, and lastly, I guess it's worth it to talk about the running and gunning part, though as I mentioned before, Tech 9 should be your go-to pistol when you're running and gunning, where you're rushing a site. For a comparison, I picked an AK-47 and I decided to run and gun with AK a little bit and do the same thing with Tech 9. Obviously, these two weapons are in different leagues, but I just wanted to show you how insanely accurate it is, the pistol is when running and gunning. As you can see with AK, it's close to impossible to hit a target while running, for obvious reasons. We all know we don't run with rifles. However, it's still worth the demonstration, and you can just see how effortlessly you can shoot a person while running with a Tec 9. So I hope this video, even though perhaps it didn't make Tec 9 your favorite pistol, it kinda brought you some insight and maybe removed some layer of intimidation by it. Of course, it will take a little bit of practice just to get your shots just right and just have the feeling for that recovery time. On a safe round, buying a Tec 9 and a flashbang for the price of a deagle sometimes is a better alternative, where you can flash the sight and rush in, as opposed to just hope you can pick somebody with a deagle from far away, for instance. So while the difference between two pistols is only 200 bucks, it can go a long way when you're short on money, trust me. Hey guys, so that's everything for the Tec 9 review. I hope you kinda got the idea that it's quite a versatile gun that can be used in a lot of different scenarios as opposed to just the first round. I don't think it works for every scenario, like you can't really go a Tec 9 against an AWP or an M4 when there is a long distance kind of thing, but if you're playing Inferno and you're getting into apps, for example, I would say the M4 and Tec 9 almost have the same chance in these close quarters. So yeah, that's kind of what you have to keep in mind, if you know what I mean. That's where game sense comes into play. Anyways, I know we all got busy lives, so you know what? Close this video and go tell your mom you love her, or something. Remember to stay sexy, beautiful, and always follow your instinct. Till the next time.